Well, for weeks, people on Parliament Hill have been doing a lot of talking about what happens on the dark streets of this country. The government's new prostitution bill would make it illegal to buy sex and creates new offenses for making money off of prostitution, such as through escort services or body houses. Critics say the changes will drive prostitutes into dark alleys, leaving them even more vulnerable to sexual predators. So we decided to go out into the streets of Toronto to hear from the people whose lives are at the very heart of this political debate. It's 11 p.m. in Toronto, and we hit the streets to talk to the people who will be most affected by the government's new prostitution bill, women like Deshawn. So Deshawn, how long have you been working the streets as a sex worker?
On and off for about 10 years. There's been times where I've stopped and times where my life was good and where I didn't have to go do that.
And so when did you start?
I was like 14 years old.
How did you get involved?
I got basically pimped. A man told me that if I didn't give him money, he was going to hurt me. And I was really young and I was scared, so I did what he wanted.
Deshawn, have you been following? In Ottawa, there's a debate. The government wants to abolish eventually prostitution. What do you think
retarded.
of that?
That's not going to happen.
Not going to happen?
No, that's the world's oldest profession. You cannot abolish the world's oldest profession. Come on, give me a break.
I'm going to show you what Peter MacKay, let me show you what he had to say.
Minister, it is important to note that the sale and the purchase of sex has never been illegal in Canada. That changes today.
What's wrong with this guy? You just can't do that.
The argument is that sex workers like you are victims, and they're being victimized, and it shouldn't happen.
Sometimes it does happen, yes.
You're victimized.
Sometimes that's the price we pay for doing what we're doing.
But why?
It's part and parcel of the job.
Have you ever been hurt? Have you been beaten up?
Not.
Should society condone that kind of stuff?
What does society have to do with my life?
Is that how you feel? Do you feel it's your individual right?
This is my right to take care of my kids. It's my right to feed them. My right to pay the rent. My right. My body. You can't tell me what to do with my life.
And the state doesn't have a right to intervene, in your view?
Not at all. Ask us what help we want. Don't try and tell us what we need.
Fair enough. And what would you say then?
Leave me the fuck alone.
Is that right? Straight up?
Leave me alone. Yeah.
You can do what you want?
Yes.
Kay, how long have you been a sex worker for?
About 15 years.
15 years.
On and off, not constantly.
How often are you on the street? Every night?
No.
How often?
A couple times a week.
Couple times a week?
Yeah.
And do you know when someone's coming, a John's coming to purchase sex, how do you screen them? How do you know that they're safe?
Well, you don't.
This is the Justice Minister, Peter MacKay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you followed him.
Yeah.
Let me just show you a couple things that he's had to say.
Sexual services,
so and
in very specific instances, the sale or the communication.
Well, it would just make it go underground. But where would I get customers if they're going to hide?
Right, is that it?
That's it. So in targeting them, and there's a lot of older people. It's not even sex, period. It's companionship for a lot of people. Do you understand? It's not always
the Justice Minister said perverts buy sex. That was the word he used.
Not everybody is a pervert.
Why are you doing it?
Why I do? Because my check isn't big enough, and I'm not in a metro housing. I'm in a private home, which by the time I pay my rent, I have like $150 left over for the month.
What would your message be to the Justice Minister?
I would ask them to rethink and maybe find a safer way for this to be done, rather than on the streets or whatever. But communication, and find out how we feel.
The women we just met who are working these streets to sell themselves are just one aspect of the sex industry, but we wanted to get the views on this new legislation from women who are using online means or body houses or even escort services as a form of business. Yes, we met 3 people who work in that industry. We'll call them Andy, Stephanie, and Mona. They wanted to hide their identities. Andy and Stephanie own large escort businesses in Toronto. Mona, in the middle, works as an escort. Why are you an escort?
I'm an escort for a variety of reasons. One being it's lucrative and I'd like to pay off my student debt while still being able to secure a financial future for myself. And I also enjoy the work.
So what's your reaction to what the government is proposing in this new legislation?
They're trying to use prosecution and persecution as a deterrent to becoming involved in this industry, and that has never worked, nor will it ever work.
You know, they're going to have blood on their hands. This government is going to have blood on their hands. Why? Because right now, you know, have you ever heard of any girl recently or in the past years being hurt working for an escort agency? No, you have not.
So how do you protect the women that work for you?
We have security bodyguards at all of our locations.
The minister says you're a victim. You're exploited. What's your reaction to that characterization?
I think it is an offensive blanket term. I don't think that there's anything wrong with making money in a safe, lucrative environment.
What is it that makes you want to hide your identities if it's such a positive experience?
It's the stigma that's attached to the industry. To this government, prostitutes are treated like a social disease.
You're defending it because you profit from it.
It's irrelevant. What they're doing is they're putting girls at risk.
Would anyone want their daughter to grow up and sell their bodies? What do you say to that argument?
If my daughter is doing this, then this means she's a victim. I messed up somehow, you know? And it's very degrading. You said earlier, why are you hiding your face? It's because, you know, if it was okay for me to open...
Have you told your folks what you do?
I have not told my folks what I do.
What would you tell the government to do?
My message would be that regulation is key. The only way to truly make this industry safer for sex workers is to make the act of reporting crimes against them easier.
The police are very much aware of all sides of the industry, but on the street they act more like counselors than law enforcement. There's an unwritten code that sex workers and Johns aren't busted. Constable Julie Rice has been the primary officer patrolling these streets for the last 11 years.
Most of the girls that are out here that I've ran into, a lot of them aren't here by choice. Right. A lot of them, you know, they've had different things that have happened to them throughout their lives that have caused them to go on the streets, and they just find it very difficult to get out.
What's the number one concern the women who are working the streets have when they talk to you in terms of what they do, their safety, or any issue?
You know, their concerns are A, that they're not going to be taken seriously, and B, like, these girls come out here, they know the streets, they've been out here because of different reasons, and, you know, they just want to, you know, if something happens to them, they want to be taken seriously, and they want to know that they can come to us, you know, if something happens to them. And
is safety a big concern for them, their own personal safety?
Yes, it is. It is, and for each other. They watch out for each other as well.